Reader lives 1,000 lives before he dies. The man who never reads lives only one. Good afternoon to all. I am Insiyafatema Alwani, and today I am delighted to welcome each and every one of you to our Department of English special gathering under the title An Introduction to Another World. So I welcome the Sir and Mega Ma'am today and all the readers. And we have gathered here not just for a reading day, but to celebrate the literary journey of the year 2023 and ready to welcome the tales that 2024 hold for us. We all have gathered here today to read not only the books, but to read each other's minds. We are the students of literature and we have lived thousands of lives and thousands of deaths. And today we have gathered here to live some more lives and feel some more life to the book. As students of the department, while studying digital humanities, we must not forget the aroma of books. Gulzar Sahab has beautifully described the poor situation of the book in his ghazal. He says, किताबें जागती है बंद अलमारी के शीशों से बड़ी हसरत से तकती है महीनों अब मुलाकात तो नहीं होती जो शामें उनकी सोबत में कटा करती थी अब अक्सर गुजर जाती है कंप्यूटर के पर्दों पर बड़ी बेचैन रहती है किताबें उन्हें अब नींद में चलने की आदत हो गई है बड़ी हसरत से तकती है जो कदरें वो सुनाती थी कि जिनके सेल कभी मरते नहीं थे वो कदरें अब नजर आती नहीं घर में जो रिश्ते वो सुनाती थी वो सारे उधरे उधरे हैं कोई सफा पलटता हूँ तो एक सिसकी निकलती है कई लफ्जों के मानी गिर पड़ते हैं बिना पत्तों के सूखे तुंड लगते हैं वो सब अल्फाज जिन पर अब कोई मानी नहीं उगते बहुत सी इस्लाह है जो मिट्टी के सकोरों की तरह बिखरी पड़ी है गिलासों ने उन्हें मतरूक कर डाला ज़बां पर जायका आता था जो सफा पलटने का अब उंगली क्लिक करने से बस एक झपकी गुजरती है बहुत कुछ तहबते खुलता चला जाता है पर्दे पर किताबों से जो जाती राबता था कट गया है कभी सीने पे रख के लेट जाते थे कभी गोदी में लेते थे कभी घुटनों को अपने रहल की सूरत बनाकर नीम सजदे में पड़ा करते थे छूते थे जबी से वो सारा इल्म तो मिलता रहेगा आइंदा भी मगर वो जो किताबों में मिला करते थे सूखे फूल और महके हुए रुके किताबें मांगने गिरने उठाने के बहाने रिश्ते बनते थे उनका क्या होगा वो शायद अब नहीं होगी So books are the best matchmakers, aren't they? Have you ever sent a love letter or a flower in the book? So think about it. Now I would like to call our first readers, Bhumiba and Riddhi Rathod. Please come.
This is working. Okay. So you have come up with a very good idea about this. I was last night wondering about this topic, an introduction to uh, another world or entering into another world. So whenever we think of another world, we always think of borders, sarhade, and when we think of sarhade border in terms of literature, we also think of variety of borders and sarhade which we have to uh, climb and go beyond. We have to transgress sometimes legally, illegally. All these borders reminds us of uh, sarhade of Basha, the language. First, very important thing that comes. So some people may say that well, you be in one language, the purity of the language. Literature is all about one language, and some may perhaps think of going into the another world through one language, introducing to the another world of another language also. The another border can also be about vichar, concepts, ideas, and how one can go beyond some ideas. When we think of this shlok from Vasudev Kutumbakam, it is all about Udar Chit and Sankuchit Man. Border decides whether you are Sankuchit or Udar. So how you go into another world, how you cross the sarhade of the vichar and Try to think of being Vasudev or Vasudha as a family, or Udarchit is what can be seen. Third important also is about ancient and modern. Junu and Nau, Purana, Naya, how those borders of new and old can be surpassed, or how the ancient enters into the new world of modern, or how the modern mind invites the ancient into the new world of the modern, how that happens. This. And finally, one another border is about this books and technology. So whether we read from a book or from a mobile, there is some sarhade in between also. That becomes also very important. So keeping this in mind, I have found some selected reading for this day. So I would like to read a few things regarding that. The first will be this combination of two things. There is this print and the mobile. Sarhade, border of these two things, how it goes. This is, I will read one paragraph at the beginning of this novel in two versions, Hindi and English. This is Geetanjali Shri's Red Samadhi, that novel, and its beginning is also quite interesting. So let us read both the things together to enter into the new world of language also. It begins, एक कहानी अपने आप को कहेगी. Daisy Rockwell has translated this, which got the Booker Prize. A tale tells itself. मुकम्मल कहानी होगी और अधूरी भी, जैसा कहानियों का चलन है. It can be complete but also incomplete, the way all tales are. दिलचस्प कहानी है, उसमें सरहदें हैं और औरतें जो आती है जाती है आरंपार. This particular tale has a border and women who come and go as they please. औरत और सरहद का साथ हो तो खूबसूरत कहानी बन जाती है. Once you got women and a border, a story can write itself. फिर वो हवा चलती है, उसमें कहानी उड़ती है, जो घास उगती है हवा की दिशा में देह को उकसाती, उसमें भी. और डूबता सूरज भी कहानी के ढेरों कंदील जलाकर बादलों पर टांग देता है, और ये सब गाथा में जुड़ते जाते हैं. राह आगे यों बढ़ती है, दाएं बाएं होती, घुमावती बनी, जैसे होश नहीं कि कहाँ रुके, और सब कुछ और कुछ भी किस्से सुनाने लग पड़ते हैं. ज्वालामुखी के अंतर्गत से निकलता, चुप चुप मरता, भाप और अंगारों और धुएं से फूटता अतीत. Daisy writes, the setting sun gathers fragments of tales and fashions them into glowing lanterns that hang suspended from clouds. These too will join our story. The story's path unfurls, not knowing where it will stop, taking to the right and left, twisting and turning, allowing anything and everything to join in the narration. It will emerge from within a volcano, swelling silently as the past boils forth into the present, bringing steam, embers, and smoke. इस कहानी में दो औरतें थी. उन औरों के अलावा जो आई और गई, चली गई, या वे जो बराबर आती जाती रही, और वे भी जो लगभग लगातार रही पर बहुत अहम नहीं थी, और उनका तो अभी जिक्र भी क्या हो, जो औरतें नहीं थी. अभी ऐसा कि दो औरतें अहम थी और उनमें से एक छोटी होती गई और एक बड़ी, दो औरतें थी और एक मौत, दो औरतें, एक मौत, क्या खूब जमेगी, मिल बैठेंगे जब साथ हम और वे. There are two women in this story. Besides these women, there are others who came and went. Those who came, those who kept coming and going, those who always stayed but weren't as important as those yet to be mentioned, who weren't women at all. For now, let's just say that two women were important, and of these, one was growing smaller and the other bigger. There were two women and one death. Two women, one death. How nicely we will get on, us and them, once we will all sit down together. So this is how this novel begins. Red Samadhi, and a very interesting translation by Daisy. Uh, when I think of Gujarati literature on this occasion, I remember Harish Minashru, uh, which the poem which we have also discussed in the class, but for the new students, it will be little bit new. And how Harish Minashru, this a few selected poems, can also become a part of this crossing the sarhadi borders here, entering into the another world. Two or three small poems I will like to recite. Parod. હજી પતંગની જેમ મસ્જિદના મિનારાની અણીએ ભરાયેલું હતું ને કાશી વિશ્વનાથ અને નંદીના પુલ્લિંગ સુધી ઉતરી આવ્યું નહોતું. મહામાયાનું અંધારું હજી તો ઓગળ્યું ન હતું. કાશીના સનાતની પક્ષીઓ ટ્વીટ 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 એમ ટ્વીટ કરી રહ્યા હતા. ઘાટના પગથિયા ઉતરતા ઉતરતા કબીરે અચાનક મને પૂછ્યું, past and present, how the borders that we have to overcome, entering into another world. ઘાટના પગથિયા ઉતરતા ઉતરતા કબીરે અચાનક મને પૂછ્યું, અરી બોરે, તું ટ્વિટરવા પે ટ્વીટ કરતા હે કે નહીં? આવી વાત ને તે કબીરના મોઢે સાંભળીને મારી બે આંખો, see the metaphor, મારી બે આંખો ગૂગલના સ્પેલિંગમાં આવતા શૂન્યના બે ચકરડા જેવી ચકિત થઈ ગઈ. ભગવાઈને હું ઘાટનું એક પગથિયું ચૂકી ગયો. કશું બોલવા જાવ એ પહેલા તો કબીરે ડૂબકી લગાવી ગહેરાઈમાં. હું તો હજી ચકળ વકળ તાકી રહ્યો તો ગંગાના વમળ. મનમાં હતું કે લાગ જોઈને પૂછી લઈશ કે સાહેબ તમારો કોઈ બ્લોગ છે કે? તમને લિંક્ડ ઇનમાં રસ ખરો કે? તમે ફેસબુક પર છો તો ખરા ને? બરાબર તાકડે કબીરે ગંગામાંથી ડોકું બહાર કાઢ્યું ને મને કહ્યું, હવે બસ ઓ બનારસીસસ. This another one. હું બ્લોગ પર ટાઈપ કરતો હતો એક ગઝલ. गजल comes there. आज उनका पता पूछ लिया महताब से, निकला है सुखी पत्ती सा उनकी किताब से. हमने जो फेसबुक पे उन्हें यूं ही छू लिया, आधे वो हकीकत से लगे आधे ख्वाब से. तेज वक्ते चंद्रोदय थयो. બ્લોગ પર ટાઈપ કરતો હતો ગઝલ. તે જ વખતે ચંદ્રોદય થયો. એ ચેટર્જી છે. જ્યારે જુઓ ત્યારે હોય છે ઓનલાઈન. દાદ ચાહુંગા, મેં ચંદ્રને કહ્યું, હંમેશની જેમ તું કરતો રહેજે વાહ વાહ, આજ હમ લૂંટ ही लेंगे मुशायरा. See the language, how it is mixing. Hindi, Gujarati, English. ચાલતી કલમે ચંદ્રએ કોમેન્ટ કરી, વાહ નહીં બુદ્ધુ, વાવ, ને સરકી ગયો બીજી વેબસાઇટ પર. This is Harish Minashru, Gujarati poet. And finally, one English poem by Meena Kandasamy, keeping the same theme of entering into another world, world of languages, ideas, and other things. This poem also. Prayers in the bathroom overheard. Title of the poem. Prayers overheard in a bathroom. O Ganga, O Jamuna, O Godavari, O Saraswati, O Narmada, O Indus, O Kaveri, be you present in this water. Be you present in this water. A god in the heaven who at this particular time was busy taking care of a rather monotonous task of answering bath time prayers, replies, Ganga might be present, but you must be aware of how pure the water is. If half burnt corpses is your preferred choice, so be it. Tathastu, so be it. As the Bible also, let there be light, and there was light. Tathastu, be it. Jamuna is dry, so I am sorry. The learned man modifies his prayer, the way men amend the laws, and triumphantly recites, O Godavari, O Saraswati, O Narmada, O Indus, O Kaveri, be you present in this water. This God is too logical. That's not advisable in gods. This is this is his first shift as a god of bath time prayers. He again warns the learned man, Godavari and Narmada, my dear, are too busy with their dams. And believe me, Saraswati will be very soon discovered. So it is only really possible for them to cleanse you. The learned man once again modifies his prayers, and since practice makes perfect, he quickly recites, O Indus, O Kaveri, be you present in this water. Mr. God in charge is too tired of explaining stuff to his fellow. He thunders in a mighty voice. Indus, you nut, is in Pakistan, and the tributaries of her in India are used mainly for irrigation. Green revolution, strictly not for things as flimsy as your bath. Kaveri, by the way, will be available once the arbitration is settled. The learned man, readying himself to go to the temple, not for prayers, that's his workplace, says no prayer and just grumbles. So much for faith, and all I get is this corporation water. God of bucket baths, once again, sincere as ever to his new job, in a rehearsed apologetic tone, interrupts with an annoying fact. My dearest child, I know this last fact may hurt, but just for your information, your pump operator is an untouchable. A learned man exits the bathroom without having a nice warm bath. After the revelation, no one in his family baths. They all now have placed their faith in powerful deodorants. So this poem, sir, somewhere entering into the another world. A good thing you have all have selected, and wish you all the best for reading wonderful things on this day. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much, sir.
I will leave, sir.
Here I want to recite Kamla Das' poem. In her poem, she says, I am Indian, very brown, born in Malabar. I speak three languages, write in two, dream in one. So here we hear the Hindi poem, Gujarati, and also some Hindi Urdu mixed poems, ghazals also. So we are student of English literature, but not we only not studied the English literature, but also world literature. So for I would like to call Bhumiba and Riddhi Rathod for reading.
Hello everyone, I am Bhumiba and I'm going to start with a short story, Last Comes the Raven. It is written by Italo Calvino and translated by Ben Johnson. The stream was a net of limpid, delicate ripples, with the water running through the mesh. From time to time, like a fluttering of silver wings, the dorsum of a trout flashed on the surface, the fish at once plunging zigzag down into the water. Full of trout, one of the men said. If we toss a grenade in, they'll all come floating to the top, bellies up, said the other. He detached a grenade from his belt and started to unscrew the base plate. Then the boy who had stood aside looking on walked over, a mountain youth with an apple look to his face. Let me have it, he said, taking the rifle from one of the men. What does he want to do? The man said, intending to reclaim the rifle, but the boy was leveling at the water in search of a target, it seemed. If you shoot, you'll only scare the fish away, the man started to say, but did not have time. A trout had surfaced, flashing, and the boy had pumped a bullet into it, as though having anticipated the fish's exact point of appearance. Now, with its white underside exposed, the trout floated lifeless on the surface. Cripes, the man said. The boy reloaded the rifle and swung it around. The air was crisp and tensed. One could distinguish the pine needles on the opposite bank and the knitted texture of the stream. A ripple broke the surface. Another trout. He fired. Now it floated dead. The men glanced briefly at the fish, briefly at the boy. He shoots well, they said. The boy swung the barrel again into the air. It was curious to think of it, that they were encompassed by air, actually cut off from other things by meters of air. But when the boy aimed the rifle, the air then became an invisible straight line stretching from the muzzle to the thing, to the hawk, for instance, floating above on wings that seemed scarcely to move. As he pressed the trigger, the air continued crystalline and clear as ever, but at the upper end of the line, the crystal folded its wings and then dropped like a stone. The open breech emitted a fine smell of powder. He asked for more cartridges. The number of men watching had now swelled behind him on the bank of the stream. The cones at the top of the pine tree on the other bank. Why were they visible and withal out of reach? Why that empty span between him and them? Why were the cones, although a part of him, in the chamber of his eyes? Why were they there, so distant? And yet, if he aimed the rifle, that empty span was clearly a deception. He touched the trigger, and at that instant, a cone served at the stem fell. The feeling was one of the caressive emptiness, the emptiness of the rifle bore which extended off into the air and occupied by the shot straight into the pine cone, the squirrel, the whitestone, the flowering poppy. He doesn't miss a one, the man said, and no one had the audacity to laugh. Come along with us, the leader said. You give me the rifle then, the boy returned. All right, certainly. So he went. He left with a haversack filled with apples and 2 rounds of cheese. His village was a patch of slate, straw, and kettle muck in the valley bottom, and going away was wonderful, for at every turn there was something new to be seen trees with cones, birds flitting among the branches, lichen encrusted rocks, everything in the shaft of the false distances occupied by gunshot that gulped up the air between. But he wasn't to shoot, they told him. Those were places to be passed in silence, and the cartridges were for fighting. But at a certain point, a leveret, frightened by the footsteps, scrambled across the trail amid shouts and the bustle of the man. It was just about to vanish into the brake when the boy stopped it with a shot. A good shot, the leader himself conceded. But this was not a pleasure hunt. You are not to shoot again, even if you see a pheasant. But scarcely an hour had elapsed before there were more shots from the column. It's the boy again, the leader stormed, going forward to overtake him. The boy grinned with his rosy and white apple face. Partridges, he said, displaying them. They had burst up from a hedge. Partridges, cricket, or whatever else. I gave you a fair warning. Now let me have the rifle, and if you make me lose my temper once more, back to the village you go. The boy sulked a little. It was no fun to be hiking without a rifle, but as long as he remained with them, he might hope to have it again. In the night, they bedded down in the chalet of herdsmen. The boy awakened immediately. The sky grew light, while the others still slept. He took their finest rifle and loaded this haversack with cartridges and went out. The air was tremulous and crisp, as one may discover it in the early morning. Not far from the house stood a mulberry tree. It was an hour in which jays were arriving. There he saw one. He fired, ran to pick it up, and stuffed it into his haversack. Without moving from where the jay had fallen, he looked about from another target, a dormouse. Startled by the first shot, it was scurrying towards the safety in the crown of a chestnut tree. Dead. It was simply a large mouse with a grey tail that shed shocks of fur at touch. From beneath the chestnut tree, he sighed. In a field of below him, a mushroom, red with white prickles and poisons. He crumpled it with a shot, then went to see if he really had got it. What fun it was, going from one target to another like that. One might in time go all the way around the world. He spied a large snail on the rock. He sighted on its shell, and going over to it noticed nothing but the shattered rock and a spot of iridescent spider. Thus, he wandered from the chalet down through unfamiliar fields. From the stone he saw a lizard on a wall, from the wall a puddle and a frog, from the puddle a signboard on zigzagging road, and beneath it men in uniform advancing on him with arms at ready. When the boy came forth with his rifle, smiling, his face rosy and white like an apple, they shouted, raising their guns. But the boy had already seen and fired at one of the gold buttons on the chest of one of them. He heard the man scream, and then bullets, in a hail and single shot, whistling over his head. He had already flattened them to the ground behind a pile of rocks on the hem of the road in a dead angle. The rock pile was long, and he could move about, and he was able to peep out from unexpected points, see the flash of the soldiers' musketry, the grey and gloss of their uniform, and fire at the chevron. Then quickly scramble along the ground to fire from a new position. Then he heard a burst of fire behind him, raking over his head into the ranks of the soldiers. His companions had appeared on the rescue with machine guns. If the boy hadn't awakened us with his firing, they were saying. Covered by his companions, the boy was better able to see. Suddenly, a bullet grazed his cheek. He turned. A soldier had got to the road above him. He threw himself into the drainage ditch, gaining shelter again, at the same time firing. The bullet, though failing to hit the soldier, glanced off the rifle stock. Now, from the sounds that he heard, he could tell that his adversary's rifles had jammed. The soldiers flung it to the ground. Then the boy rose up. The soldier had taken to his heels, and the boy fired at him, popping an epaulet in the air. The boy gave chase. The soldier dashed into the woods, at first vanishing, but presently reappearing within the range. The boy burned a crease in the dome of the soldier's helmet, next shot off a belt loop, one after another. They had meanwhile come into a dale to which they were both of them strangers, and where a din of the battle was no longer heard. In time, the soldier found himself without any more trees before him, instead a glade overgrown with knotted clumps, and the boy was himself about to come out of the woods. In the middle of the clearing stood a large rock. The soldier barely made it, jumping behind and doubling up with his head between his knees. There, for the time being, he felt he was out of danger. He had some grenades with him, and the boy would have to maintain a respectful distance. He could do no more than keep him pinned down with his rifle, ensuring that he did not escape. Certainly, had it been possible for him to simply dive into the thicket, he would be safe, able to slide down the heavily bearded slope. But there was the open track to cross. How long would the boy wait? And would he continue to keep his rifle trained on him? The soldier decided to try an experiment. He put his helmet on his beyond and stuck it out from behind the rock. There was a shot, and the helmet pierced through, bowled along the ground. The soldier kept his wits, doubtless aiming at the rock, and the area around it was quite easy. But the soldier would not get hit if he was nimble enough. Just then, a bird raced overhead, a hoopoe perhaps. One shot and it fell. The soldier wiped sweat from around his neck. Another bird, a missile thrush, went over. It fell too. The soldier swallowed. This was very likely a flyway, for other birds continued to go over, all of them different, and as the boy fired, they fell. A thought came to the soldier. If he is watching birds, then he can't be watching me. Just as he fires, I'll jump for the bushes. But it might be well to test his plan first. He picked up his helmet and placed it on the tip of his wing. Two birds flew over the stand. Waiting, the soldier regretted wasting so fine an occasion on test. The boy fired at one of the snipes. The soldier raised his helmet. A second shot rang out, and he saw the helmet leap into the air. The soldier's mouth tasted of lead. He had no sooner noticed this than the second bird fell. He must not lose his head behind the rock with his grenade. He was safe. And why then, even though hidden, couldn't he try to get the boy with a grenade? He lay on his back, and bewaring not to be seen, stretched back his arm, trimmed his strength, and pitched the grenade. A good throw. It would go some distance, but describing only half a parabola. Still in midair, it was exploded by a rifle blast. The soldier flattened himself against the ground to escape the shrapnel. When next the soldier raised himself, the raven had come. He saw circling lazily above him a bird, a raven perhaps. The boy would certainly shoot it down. But no shot followed. Was the raven perhaps too high? And yet he had brought down higher and swifter birds than that. Finally, he fired. Now it would drop. No. It continued to soar in the sky, slowly, round and round. A pine cone toppled from a nearby tree. Had he taken to shooting at pine cones? One by one, as he hit them, the cones fell, striking with a dry crunch. At each report, the soldier glanced up at the raven. Was it falling? Not yet. Lower and lower, the black bird continued to circle overhead. Could it be, really, that the boy didn't see it? Or perhaps the raven didn't exist at all? It was only a hallucination. But perhaps a man near death sees all the birds fly over. And when he sees the raven, it means that the hour has come. In any case, he must tell the boy, who went on shooting at mere pine cones. The soldier rose to his feet and pointed up at the black bird. That's the raven, he shouted in his own language. The bullet struck him through the heart of the spread eagle embroidered on his jacket. The raven came down slowly, reeling. That was it.
Hello everyone. મારી બુકનું નામ છે સુધા મૂર્તિ મનની વાત, જેનો અનુવાદ સોનલ મોદીએ કરેલો છે. હું ટૂંકી વાર્તા વાંચવા જઈ રહી છું, જેનું નામ છે નહીં તો હું આત્મહત્યા કરીશ. ઇન્ફોસિસ ફાઉન્ડેશન એક સેવા સંસ્થા છે. મોટા ભાગે ઇન્ફોસિસ કંપની જે રાજ્યોમાં પોતાની ઓફિસો અને સ્ટાફ ધરાવે છે, તેવા રાજ્યોના અંતરિયાળ ગામડાઓમાં અમારા સેવાભાવી કાર્યકરો સુંદર કામ કરે છે. ફાઉન્ડેશનને દર વર્ષે મદદની માંગણી કરતા લગભગ 10,000 વધારે પત્રો મળે છે. અમારા માટે આ પત્રોને અલગ તારવવા, વાંચવા અને તેના જવાબ આપવા તે અત્યંત જવાબદારીભર્યું અને મુશ્કેલ કાર્ય છે. ઘણા પત્રો વાંચીને વ્યથિત થઈ જવાય છે. કેટલાકમાં ચોંકાવનારી માહિતી હોય છે અને અમુક હસવું આવે તેવા પણ હોય છે. એક દિવસ 5 પાનાનો લાંબો પત્ર મળ્યો. ઉપર મોટા અક્ષરે લખેલું, મદદ માટેની અપીલ, મોસ્ટ અર્જન્ટ. હું પત્રને તરત જ ખોલીને ઝડપથી વાંચવા માંડી. પત્ર એક બહેન તરફથી હતો. પહેલા 2 પાનામાં મારા વખાણ કર્યા હતા. હું કેટલી હોશિયાર છું અને કેવા ઉમદા કાર્યો કરું છું તેનું વર્ણન હતું. નરી ભાટાઈ. બીજા 2 પાનામાં ઇન્ફોસિસ ફાઉન્ડેશન સંસ્થા કેવું કામ કરે છે તેના ગુણગાન ગવાયા હતા. હું વિચારમાં પડી, આમાં મોસ્ટ અર્જન્ટ શું છે? 5મા પાનામાં લખનાર બહેને શેર બજારની મંદી અને ભાવોના કડાકાનું વર્ણન કર્યું હતું. પોતે પોતાના પતિથી છુપાવીને આડેધડ શેરોની ખરીદી કરી હતી. સાચા ખોટાની સમજણ વગર શેરો લઈને પોતે કેવા ફસાયા હતા તે જણાવ્યું હતું. છેલ્લા થોડાક વાક્યોમાં તેમણે મને કહેલું કે તમારા માટે તો 5 કરોડ ચૂકવવા એ તો બચ્ચાનો ખેલ છે. મને આમાંથી ઉગારી લો, નહીં તો હું કોઈને મોં બતાવવા લાયક નહીં રહું. તમે તો કરોડના આસામી છો. 5 કરોડની તમારે મન શું વિસાદ? હું તો આવો નર્યો મૂર્ખામી ભર્યો પત્ર વાંચીને અચંબામાં પડી ગઈ. આ બહેનને તો શું જવાબ લખવો? આવા લોકોની પરિસ્થિતિ પર તો હસવું કે રડવું? ફાઉન્ડેશન આમાં શું મદદ કરી શકે? મેં જવાબ ન લખ્યો. અઠવાડિયા પછી આ બહેનનો બીજો પત્ર આવ્યો. આ વખતે કોઈ વખાણ નહીં, કોઈ આડીઅવળી વાત નહીં, બસ સીધો જ સંદેશો. પૈસા મોકલાવો, મારે તો ઘર ખાવાના સાસા થઈ ગયા છે. બાળકોની નિશાળની ફી ભરવાની છે. કોઈને મોં બતાવવા જેવું નથી રહ્યું, વગેરે. છેલ્લું વાક્ય વાંચીને તો હું આશ્ચર્યચકિત થઈ ગઈ. લખેલું, જો મેડમ તમે મને પૈસા નહીં મોકલો તો હું આત્મહત્યા કરી લઈશ અને તેની જવાબદારી તમારી રહેશે. આવા પત્રનો તો હું શું જવાબ લખું? શાંત રહેવામાં જ ડાપણ હતું. ત્રીજા અઠવાડિયે ફરી એક અત્યંત ક્રૂર પત્ર આવ્યો. આ બહેને લખેલું, તમારા જેવી પત્તરદિલ વ્યક્તિ મેં મારી જિંદગીમાં નથી જોઈ. તમારી પાસે આશા રાખવી જ નકામી છે. એક સ્ત્રી તરીકે તમારા દિલમાં બીજી કોઈ સ્ત્રી માટે લાગણી જ નથી અને હમદર્દી નથી. શું જોઈને સેવા કરવા નીકળી પડ્યા છો? હું અત્યંત વ્યથિત થઈ ગઈ. ખરેખર તો આવા પત્રોને ગણકારવા જ ન જોઈએ. આ બહેનને તો કોણ સમજાવે? જો તમને કોઈ મદદ કરે તો તે સારી, પણ મદદ ન કરી શકે તો કાયમ માટે ખરાબ. કોઈને પૈસા આપો ત્યારે વાલા લાગો અને તમારા જ પૈસા તમારી જરૂરિયાત હોય ને પાછા માંગો તો દુશ્મન થઈ જાવ છો. ખૂબ નજીકના મિત્રો અને સગા સંબંધીઓ પણ અનેકવાર આવું વર્તન કરે છે, ત્યારે અત્યંત દુઃખ થાય છે. મેં ઘણીવાર નજીકના સંબંધીઓના મોઢે જ સાંભળ્યું છે, પોતાના જ માણસોને કામમાં ન આવે તેવા પૈસાનો શું અર્થ? તમે બીજાને શું મદદ કરી શકવાના? મદદ એક એવો શબ્દ છે કે જેનો સાચો અર્થ ભાગ્યે જ બધા સમજી શકે છે. આપણે આપણા જરૂરિયાતમંદ દેશવાસીઓને તથા દેશને જરૂર મદદ કરવી જોઈએ, પણ જેને જરૂર નથી, જેણે લોભમાં પૈસા ગુમાવ્યા છે, એને બીજું ઘર ખરીદવા, દર દાગીનો કરાવવા કે વિદેશની સફર કરાવવા પૈસા જોઈએ છે, તેને મદદ કરવી એ શું યોગ્ય છે? શેર બજારમાં રાતોરાત ધનિક થવાના મોહમાં જેણે ઘણું બધું ગુમાવ્યું છે, તેને મદદની શી જરૂર? લોભી અને મૂર્ખને મદદ કરવામાં જ નરી મૂર્ખતા છે. જરૂરિયાતમંદ વ્યક્તિઓમાં પણ યોગ્યતા અને પાત્રતા હોવી જોઈએ. જો બધા જ દરવાજા બંધ થઈ ગયા અને માંદગી કે ઉચ્ચ શિક્ષણ માટેની જરૂરિયાત હોય તો જ મદદ માટેની અપીલ કરવી જોઈએ. મદદની અપેક્ષા રાખનાર વ્યક્તિએ એક વાત હંમેશા યાદ રાખવી જોઈએ કે આ પૈસા એ કોઈના ખૂન પસીનાના છે. જેણે આ દાન આપ્યું છે, તેણે રાત દિવસ જોયા વગર કુટુંબને બાજુ પર રાખીને પોતાના મોજ શોખ ત્યજીને આ ધન પ્રાપ્ત કર્યું છે અને તેનું દાન કરવાનું નક્કી કર્યું છે. લેનાર કરતા આપનારનો આ હાથ હંમેશા એક વેત ઉપર રહે છે. થેન્ક યુ.
Thank you so much to both of you. Now, now further, I would like to invite Yashraj and Dhatri.
Uh, Very good afternoon to all of you. Dhatri and I, Yashraj, are going to read a story by John Galsworthy. The story name is Quality. I knew him for the days of my extreme youth because he made my father's boots, inhabiting with his elder brother two little shops led into one in a small by street, now no more, but then most fashionably placed in the West End. The tenement had a certain quiet distinction. There was no sign upon its face, and he made for any of the royal family, merely his own German name, Gessler Brothers. And in the window, a few pairs of boots. I remember that it always troubled me to account for those unvarying boots in window, for he made only what was ordered, reaching nothing down, and it seemed so unconceivable that what he made could never have failed to fit. Had he bought them to put there? That too seemed unconceivable. He would never have tolerated his home leather on which he had not worked himself. Besides, they were too beautiful. The pair of pumps, so expressively slim and patterned leather with cloth tops, making water come into one's mouth. Tall brown riding boots with marvelous sooty glow, as if though new, they had been worn 100 times. Those wares could only be made by one who saw before him a soul of boot. So truly were they prototypes incarnating the very spirit of the footwear. These thoughts, of course, came to me later, though even when I was promoted to him at the age of perhaps 14. Some inkling haunted me with a dignity of himself and his brother. For to make boots, such a boots as he made, seemed to me then a steel seems to me mysterious and wonderful. I remember well my sigh remark one day while scratching out to him my youthful foot. Isn't it awfully hard to do, Mr. Gessler? And his answer giving with a sudden smile from out of the sardonic redness of his blood. It is an art. Himself he was a little as if made from leather, with his yellow crinkly face and crinkly reddish hair and beard, and neat folds slanting down the cheeks to the corners of his mouth, his slanting down his cheeks to the corners, and guttural and one-tone voice. For leather is sardonic substance, and stiff and slow for purpose. And that was the character of his and face, save that eyes which were grey blue, had in them in the simply gravity of the secretly possessed of the ideal. His elder brother was so very like him, though watery, paler in every way, with a great industry, that sometimes in early days I was not quite sure of him until the interview was over. Then I knew that it was he, if the words I will ask my brother had not been spoken, and that if they had it was his elder brother. When one grew old and wild and ran up bills, one somehow never ran them into the Gessler brothers. It would not have seemed becoming to go in there and stretch out one's foot to the blue iron spectacle glance, owing him for one more. Oh, two pairs. Just a comfortable reassurance that one was still his client, for it was not possible to go to him very often. His boot lasted terribly, having something beyond the temporary, some as it were, essence of boot sneaked into them. One went not as to the most stops in a mood of please serve me and let me go, but restfully as one enters a church, sitting on the single wooden chair, waited for this was never anybody there. Soon ever the top edge of the sort of well ranked dark and smelling soothingly of leather, which formed the saw. There would be seen his face or his elder brother peering down, a guttural sound of the tip tap of the bast, slippers beating the narrow wooden stand, and he would stand before one without a coat, a little bent in leather apron and sleeve turned back, blinking as if awakened from some dreams of wood, or like a owl surprised in daylight and annoyed by this interruption. And I would say, how do you, Mr. Gessler? Would you make me a pair of Russian leather boots? Without a word, he would leave me, retiring whence he went into the other person of the shop, and would continue to rest in the wooden chair, inhaling the incense of his trade. Soon he would come back, holding his thin, veined hand and a piece of gold brown leather, with eyes fixed on it. He would remark, "What a beautiful piece!" When I do, when I too had admired it, he would speak again. "When do you want them?" And I would answer, "Oh yes, soon as you conceivably can." And he would say, "Tomorrow fortnight?" Or if he were his elder brother, "I will ask my brother." Then I would murmur, "Thank you, good morning, Mr. Gessler." "Good morning," he would reply, still looking at the leather in his hand. And as I moved to the door, I would hear the tip tap of his vast slipper restoring him up the stair and his dream of boots. But if it were some kind of foot gear that he had not yet made me, then indeed he would observe ceremony, divesting me of any of my boot and holding it long in his hand, looking at it with eyes at once critical and loving, as if recalling the glow of which he had created it, and rebulking the way in which one had disorganized this masterpiece. Then placing my foot thin piece of paper, he would two or three tickle an outer edge with a pencil and pass his nervous finger over the toes, feeling himself into the heart of the requirements. I cannot forget that the day on which I had occasion to say to him, "Mr. Gessler, That last pair of town walking boots cracked. You know, he looked at me for time without replying, as if it expecting me to withdraw or qualify the statement, then said, it shouldn't have grabbed. It did, I'm afraid. You got them wet before they found themselves. I don't think so. At that time, he lowered his eyes at his hunting his memory of those boots, and I felt sorry I had mentioned this grave thing. A feeling of compassion for a cracking boot surged up to me in me, and so I well imagined the sorrowful curiosity of regard in which he would bend on them. Those boots, he said slowly, are bad for the bird. If I can do nothing with them, I will take them off your bill. Once only I went absent-mindedly into his shop in a pair of boots bought in the emergency at some large firms. He took my order without showing me any leather, and I could feel his eyes penetrating the inferior intimates of boot. At last he says, "Those are not my boots." And now I request Dhatri for further reading. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. I continue the story where Yashraj left. The tone was not of anger, not of sorrow, even of contempt, but there was in something quite that froze the blood. He put his hand on down and pressed the finger on the place where the left foot, endeavoring to be fashionable, was not quite comfortable. It hurts you there, he said. Those big worms have no self respect, dress, and as if something had given way within him. He spoke long and bitterly. It was the only time I ever heard him discuss the condition and hardship of a trade. They get it all, he said. They get it by advertisement, not by work. They take it away from us, who love our birds. It comes to this. Presley, I have no work. Every year, it gets less. You will see. And looking at his lean face, I was saw things I had never noticed before. Bitter things and bitter struggles. And what lot of grey hairs there seemed suddenly in the red beard. As best I could, I explained the circumstances of the purchase of those ill-omened birds, but his face and voice made so deep an impression that during the next few minutes I ordered many pairs. Naming fails, they lasted more terribly than ever. I was not able consciously to go him for nearly 2 years. When at last I went, I was surprised to find outside one of the two little windows of his shop another name was painted, also that of the bootmaker, making of course for the royal family. The old family boots, no longer in dignified isolation, were hugged in the single window. Inside now, contracted well off one little shop was more scanted and darker than ever, and it was longer than usual, to before a face peered down and tip-tap of this vast slipper began. At last he stood before me, and gazing through those rusty iron spectacles, said, "Mr. Isn't it? Ah, Mr. Gessler," I stammered. "But your boots are really too good, you know. See, they are quite decent still." And I stretched out of his my foot, and he looked at it. "Yes," he said, "people do not want good boots, it seems." To get away from his reproachful eyes and voice, I hastily remarked, "What have you done to your shop?" He answered quietly, "It was too expensive. Do you want some boots?" I ordered 3 pairs. Though I wanted only two and quickly left. I had, I do not quite doubt, feeling of being part in his mind, of conspiracy against him, or not perhaps so much against him as against his idea of good. One does not, I suppose, to care feel like that, for it was again many months before my next visit to his shop, paid, I remember, with a feeling. Oh well, I can't leave the old boy, so here goes. Perhaps it will be his elder brother, for his elder brother, I knew, had not character enough to reproach me even dumbly. And to my relief, in the shop, Daddy appeared to his elder brother, handling a piece of leather. Well, Mr. Gessler, I said, how are you? I am badly well, he said slowly, but my elder brother is dead. And I showed that it was indeed himself, but how aged and worn. And never before had I heard him mention his brother. Much shocked, I murmured, oh, I'm sorry. Yes, he answered, he was a good man. He meant a good boot, but he is dead. And he touched the top of his head, where her head suddenly gone as thin as it had been a part of his poor brother, to indicate, I suppose, the cause of death. He could not get over losing to order shop. Do you want any boots? And he held a leather in his hand. It's beautiful piece. I ordered several pairs. It was very long before they came, but they were better than ever. One simply could not wear them out. And soon after that I went abroad. It was over a year before I was again in London, and the first shop I went to was my old friend's. I left a man of 60. I came back to one of the 75, pinched and worn and trimmers, who genuinely this time did not at first know me. Oh, Mr. Gessler, I said, sick at heart, how splendid your boots are. See, I have been wearing this pair nearly all the time. I have been abroad and they are not half worn out. Are they? He looked at long at my boots, a pair of Russian leather. His face regained steadiness. Putting his hands on my instep, he said, do they with you there? Our trouble with that pair, I remember. I assured him that they had fitted beautifully. Do you want any boots? He said. I can make them quickly. It is a slack dime. I answered. Please, please, I want boots all around, every kind. I'll make a worse model. Your foot must be bigger. And with utter slowness, he traced round my foot and felt my toes, only once looking up to see. Did I tell you my herder was red? To watch him was painful, so feeble had he grown. I was glad to get away. I had given those boots up when one evening they came. Opening the parcel, I set the 4 pairs in the row. Then one by one, I tried them on. There was no doubt about it. In shape and fit, in finish and quality of leather, they were the best he had ever made. And in the mouth of one of the town walking boots, I found his bill. The amount was the same as usual, but it gave me a quite shock. He had never before sent it till quarter day. I flew downstairs and wrote a check and posted it once with my own hand. A week later, passing by the little street, I thought I would go into and tell him how splendidly the boots now fitted. But when I came to where his shop had been, his name was gone. Still, there in the window were the slim pumps, the patent leather cloth tops, the shorty reaching boots. I went in very much disturbed. In two little shops again, made into one, was a young man with an English face. Mr. Gessler in? I said. He gave me a strange, irrigating look. No, sir, he had. No, but we can attend to anything pleasure. We have taken the shop over. You have seen our name, no doubt, next door. We make for some very good people. Yes, yes, I say. But Mr. Gessler? Oh, he answered. That? But I received these goods from his Wednesday last week. Ah, he said. A shocking go. Poor old man starved himself. Good God, slow starvation, the doctor called it. You see, he went to work in such a way would keep the shop on, wouldn't have a soul to touch his boot except himself. When he got an order, it took him such a time. People won't wait. He lost everybody. And there he'd sit, going on. And I will say that for him, not a man in London made a better boot. But look at the competition. He never advertised. Would they have the best leather? Too, and do it himself well. There it is. What could you expect with his ideas? But starvation. That may be a bit flowery in saying his, but I know myself he was sitting over his books day and night to very last. You see, I used to watch him. Never gave himself time to eat, never had a penny in the house. All went in red and leather. How he lived so long, I don't know. He regularly let his fire go out. He was a character, but he made good books. Yes, I say, he made good books. And I turned and went out quietly, for I did not want to that youth to know that I could hardly see. This is the story. Moral of the story is that a death of a craftsmanship, while the modern age, we find that there are lots of assembly line, and that's why merely the craftsmanship was dying, and that's why the immigrant of Mr. Gessler brothers, all the Gessler brothers are dying because of the starvation. Okay, thank you. Thanks to Yashraj and Dhatri. Words have a power. The power to move, to inspire, to spark action. Carry this spark with you. Let it fuel your courage. Now, I would like to invite Rinkal to present a song written by Rabindranath Tagore, તેથી કઈ ચિંતા કરે ચાલશે નહીં.
Hello everyone. The song I am about to sing is originally written by Tagore and then translated by Indira Gandhi. And that is it is તેથી કઈ ચિંતા કરે ચાલશે ના. હે તારા સ્વજન તને જાય મૂકી તો તેથી કાંઈ ચિંતા કરે ચાલશે ના. તારા સ્વજન તને જાય મૂકી તો તેથી કાંઈ ચિંતા કરે ચાલશે ના. તેથી કાંઈ ચિંતા કરે ચાલશે ના. માર્ગે તિમિર ઘોર ઘેરાશે એટલે શું તું અટકી જશે. માર્ગે તિમિર ઘોર ઘેરાશે એટલે શું તું અટકી જશે. વારંવારે ચેતવે દીવો વારંવારે ચેતવે દીવો ખેર જો દીવો ચેતશે ના. તેથી કાંઈ ચિંતા કરે ચાલશે ના. તારા સ્વજન તને જાય મૂકી તો તેથી કાંઈ ચિંતા કરે ચાલશે ના. તેથી કાંઈ ચિંતા કરે ચાલશે ના. બારણા સામે બંધ મળે એટલે શું તું પાછો વળે. બારણા સામે બંધ મળે એટલે શું તું પાછો વળે. વારંવારે ઠેલવા પડે વારંવારે ઠેલવા પડે બારણા તો એ હાલશે ના. તેથી કાંઈ ચિંતા કરે ચાલશે ના. તારા સ્વજન તને જાય મૂકી તો તેથી કાંઈ चिंता करे चालશે ના. તેથી કાંઈ चिंता करे ચાલશે ના. સુણી તારા મુખની વાણી વિતળાશે વન વનના પ્રાણી. સુણી તારા મુખની વાણી વિતળાશે વન વનના પ્રાણી. તોય પોતાના ઘરમાં તારે તોય પોતાના ઘરમાં તારે પ્રાણના હૈયા હાલશે ના. તેથી કાંઈ चिंता કરે ચાલશે ના. તેથી કાંઈ चिंता કરે ચાલશે ના. તારા સ્વજન તને જાય મૂકી તો તેથી કાંઈ चिंता કરે ચાલશે ના. તેથી કાંઈ चिंता કરે ચાલશે ના. તેથી કાંઈ चिंता કરે ચાલશે ના. થેન્ક યુ.
It's beautifully sung by Rinkal. Thank you so much. Each of us carries within us a universe of experience and reflections. Authors gives words to this experience. Let this tale be a mirror reflecting back the depth of our own existence. Now, for further reading, I would like to invite Hina and Hardi.
હું વાંચવા જઈ રહી છું સુધા મૂર્તિની મનની વાત, અનુવાદક સોનલ મોદી. અને એમાંથી ટૂંકી વાર્તાનું નામ છે મોડર્ન કરા. થોડા સમય પહેલા મને એક કોલેજના પ્રાંગણમાં બનાવેલ નવા ઓડિટોરિયમનું ઉદ્ઘાટન કરવા માટે આમંત્રિત કરવામાં આવી હતી. હોલ ખૂબ વિશાળ ન હતો, પણ સરસ રીતે ડિઝાઇન કરેલ હતો. એક ચીજની મને ભારે નવાઈ લાગી. એક પણ દિવાલ પર તસુભાર જગ્યા ખાલી ન હતી. ઠેર ઠેર ગ્રેનાઇટના પથ્થરની તકતીઓ ચોટાડેલી અને તકતીઓ પર દાતાઓના નામ તથા તેમણે દાનમાં આપેલ રકમની મોટા અક્ષરે લખેલ વિગતોની નોંધ હતી. ખરેખર આવા સરસ હોલને આ તકતીઓ તદ્દન ભદ્દો બનાવી દેતી હતી. આખું દ્રશ્ય આંખને અને મનને ખૂંચતું હતું. આટલું ઓછું હોય તેમ દિવાલો પર ઠેર ઠેકાણે દાતાઓના ફોટાની હાર લગાવેલી હતી. કોલેજના ઉદ્ઘાટન સમારંભના અધ્યક્ષને મારા મનમાં ચાલતી ગડમથલ તરત જ સમજાઈ ગઈ. મને કહે, બહેન, અમે દાતાઓને નવા હોલ માટે દાન માટે ટહેલ નાખી તો ખાસ કાંઈ દાન ન મળ્યું. પછી કોઈ અનુભવી વ્યક્તિએ અમને સુઝાવ્યું કે તમે એવી જાહેરાત કરો કે જે વ્યક્તિ આ સત્કાર્ય માટે 1000 થી વધારે રકમનું દાન આપશે તેમના નામની તકતી હોલની દિવાલ પર મૂકવામાં આવશે અને જેઓ 5000 થી વધારે આપશે તેમનો ફોટો પણ મૂકવામાં આવશે. તો જ દાન મળશે. મેં કુતૂહલથી પૂછ્યું, અને જે 10,000 થી વધુ આપે તેને માટે શી વ્યવસ્થા હતી? અરે બહેન, તેમના નામ તો જુદી આરસની તકતી પર કોતરીને હોલના મુખ્ય પ્રવેશ દ્વાર પાસે મૂકવામાં આવશે તેવી ખાતરી આપવામાં આવી હતી. આયોજક બોલ્યા, તમે માનશો નહીં બહેન, થોડા જ વખતમાં પૂરેપૂરી રકમ તો મળી જ ગઈ, પણ એવા વિચિત્ર માણસોના અનુભવ થયા કે જેમણે ચાર વાર આપ્યા, જેથી હોલની ચારે દિવાલો પર તેમનું ઓછામાં ઓછું એક વાર તો નામ આવે જ. દાતાના નામ તો યાદ રાખવા જ જોઈએ, પણ નામની અને પ્રસિદ્ધિની આટલી હદે ઘેલછા? જે વ્યક્તિએ પોતાની પરસેવાની કમાણીનું દાન કર્યું હોય તેને માન મળે તેનો વાંધો નથી, પણ મંદિરોની મૂર્તિઓની નીચે પણ દાદાથી માંડીને પોત્રો સુધીના નામ લાલ અક્ષરે ઉડીને આંખમાં વળગે છે ત્યારે તદ્દન બેહુદું દ્રશ્ય ખડું થાય છે. મને મનોમન એક વ્યક્તિ યાદ આવી ગઈ. પોતાના જમાનામાં પણ વૈચારિક રીતે અતિ ક્રાંતિકારી તેવા બેંગ્લોરના એક પ્રતિષ્ઠિત વેપારી શ્રી મરિયપ્પા. 1914ની સાલમાં તેમણે ઘણા બધા આર્થિક રીતે પછાત વિદ્યાર્થીઓને મદદ કરી હતી. તેઓ પોતે તો અભણ હતા, પણ તેથી જ અભ્યાસનું મહત્વ ખૂબ સમજતા. તેમના બંગલે આવા વિદ્યાર્થીઓ માટે મોટા પાયે રસોડું ચાલતું અને જરૂરિયાતમંદ તથા લાયકાત ધરાવતા વિદ્યાર્થીઓની સંપૂર્ણ ફી તેમના તરફથી ભરવામાં આવતી. શ્રી મરિયપ્પા 1914ની 12મી માર્ચે અવસાન પામ્યા. મૃત્યુના ફક્ત 8 દિવસ પૂર્વે તેમણે પોતાનું વિલ તૈયાર કરાવ્યું હતું. તેમના વિલ મુજબ તેમના પત્નીને દર મહિને મૃત્યુ પર્યંત મહિને 60 રૂપિયા આપવાની શરત હતી. આ દંપતીને બાળકો ન હતા. તેઓ જે 4 મંદિરમાં હંમેશ જતા તે ચારેય મંદિરમાં પૂજા અર્ચન, ઘી તેલથી બધી જ વ્યવસ્થા કાયમી ધોરણે તેમના તરફથી કરવામાં આવી. તેમણે આગળ લખ્યું હતું કે 45 વિદ્યાર્થીઓને દર વર્ષે મારા કુટુંબ તરફથી રહેવા જમવા તથા ફી માફીની સગવડ મળશે. શ્રી મરિયપ્પાના અંગત જીવન વિશે ભાગ્યે જ કોઈને માહિતી છે. મોટા ભાગે આવા દાનેશ્વરીઓ અંતર્મુખી અને શરમાળ જ હોય છે. પોતાનો જમણો હાથ જે દાન આપે તેની ડાબા હાથની ખબર ન પડે તેનું ધ્યાન રાખે છે. જે થોડું કરે તેણે જ મોટો ઢોલ પીટવો પડે છે. એક બહુ જ સરસ કહેવત છે જેનો અર્થ કંઈક આવો છે. માનવી જે પૈસા કમાય છે તેને સત્કાર્યમાં નહીં વાપરે તો તે ધન કુમાર્ગે જ વપરાશે. મરિયપ્પા હોસ્ટેલ 1921 ની 1 જુલાઈએ શરૂ થઈ. અલગ અલગ ભાષા, ધર્મના 45 તેજસ્વી વિદ્યાર્થીઓને બેંગ્લોરમાં રહેવા માટે સ્થાન મળ્યું. આ ટ્રસ્ટના 6 માદક ટ્રસ્ટીઓ છે જેઓ પોતપોતાના ક્ષેત્રમાં ભારે દબદબાભર્યું સ્થાન ધરાવે છે. શ્રી મરિયપ્પાની સંપત્તિ જમીન જાગીરના પૈસા ઉપજાવતા અને બધું વિલ પ્રમાણે ઠેકાણે પાડતા જ 7 વર્ષ લાગ્યા હતા. એ મોંઘવારીના જમાનામાં આ મિલકત 1,45,00,000ની હતી. તેમાંથી અડધી મૂડી હોસ્ટેલ બાંધવા માટેની જમીન ખરીદવામાં વપરાય તથા બીજી અડધી તે સમયે જ નવી શરૂ થયેલ માયસોર બેંકમાં ડિપોઝિટ તરીકે મૂકવામાં આવી. હમણાં જ શ્રી બી.કે. મરિયપ્પા હોસ્ટેલને 80 વર્ષ પૂરા થયા. તેની તથા આ કાર્યના પ્રણેતાની 120મી જન્મ જયંતિ પ્રસંગેની ઉજવણીનો આરંભ યોજાઈ ગયો. સમારંભમાં જે વ્યક્તિઓ બેઠી હતી તે મને જોતા જ ખ્યાલ આવે કે એક મહાન વ્યક્તિ સંપત્તિનું યોગ્ય દાન કરીને બીજી કેટલીક મહાન હસ્તીઓ પેદા કરી શકે છે. બેંગ્લોરના અલગ અલગ ક્ષેત્રમાં નામના ધરાવતા કેટલાક લોકો શ્રી મરિયપ્પા હોસ્ટેલમાં રહી ચૂક્યા છે. આજે તો તેમના કેટલાએ આવું દાન કરી શકે તેમ છે. શ્રી મરિયપ્પા જેવા દયાળુ સજ્જન ન હોત તો કદાચ આમાંની કેટલીક હસ્તીઓ આમ તેમ નાના મોટા કામમાં ગોઠવાઈ ગઈ હોત અને તેમની પ્રતિષ્ઠા ખતમ થઈ ગઈ હોત. સમાજને કંઈક પરત કરીને આભાર માનવો તે સંસ્કારિતાની અવ્વલ નિશાની છે. કોઈ કોલેજ કે યુનિવર્સિટી કમનસીબે સંસ્કારના વિષયો નથી શીખવતી. બાળકોને નાનપણથી જ દાન આપવું, આભાર માનવું વગેરે ઘરમાં જ માતા પિતાને અને શાળાઓમાં શિક્ષકોએ શીખવવું જ પડે. આ સંસ્કાર ગળગુથીમાંથી જ આપવા જોઈએ. શું મરિયપ્પાને મોડર્ન કર્ણ ન જ કહી શકાય? આવી ઘણી બધી વ્યક્તિઓની આ દેશને જરૂર છે. થેન્ક યુ.
Good afternoon, everyone. Myself Hardi and today I am going to read 8 rupees by Murlidas Melwani. It was 9 o'clock. The boy, thin and small, lumbered up with the steps of many-storied mansion. He stopped at each floor to survey the doors of all the rooms. The shirt he wore was tattered and his skin showed through it. The pocket of his dirty shorts bulged with weight of something in them. One of the top floor a door with a bigger and brighter nameplate than anybody other door in the mansion caught his attention. The boy stood staring at it a long time. Finally, moving a few yards away and sitting down the floor, he kept an eye on it. People were coming out of the apartment and going down the steps. The boy studied each thoroughly. After about half an hour, the door with the bigger and brighter nameplate opened and a tall, rather well-dressed man came out. Then he sprang up, pulled out two tins of boots polish from one pocket and a brush from the other and intercepting the man said, "Shoes shine, Sahib." The man looked at the shoes and said, "I don't need one now. Now for another 2 days." The boy's countenance fell. He showed then he was disappointed. "I will charge you half the market rate, sir." The man smiled. It's not a question of money. I will make your shoes shine like silver. The man refused, but the boy persisted. Finally, the man agreed. Thank you, the boy said, his face lighting up. But where is your footrest? I haven't got one, sahib. I will buy one someday when I have saved enough. Eagerly, the boy lowered himself, crossed his leg, and slapping one of knees sharply, said, "Put your foot here." The knee looked tender, and the man hesitated before putting his foot on it. What happened to your footrest? Broke it? Lost it? I never had one. Can't afford one. With a mother and three sisters to support, an earring being what they are. He put the polish with rapid little steps of his foreigner, then spread it all over with energetic circular strokes of his fingertips. Am I not an expert? The boy asked as he walked, looking up into the man's face. He had bright and illuminate eyes, strikingly set off by his smudged chocolate brown skin. The man looked down at the boy's fluttering hand and said, "Yes, wish I had a box and footrest, so my sisters, so that my sisters could at least go to school. They don't go to school. I am not a, I am not only one of the in the family who earns. The others are too young. What about your father? He left us about 6 months back. Didn't tell us where he was going. Used to drink a lot. A few quick strokes of the brush to and fro, and the shoe was glistening. The other foot, please. Have you tried to save? I have. But it's impossible with so many to support, and I don't want to beg or steal. A pause followed, the silence broken only by the rapid tapping of passing feet. Sometimes when I start thinking, I feel I would go mad. He spoke in a low, silky voice as if talking to him. My sisters are growing up. One of these days I will have to marry them off. From where am I going to get them dowries? Will they have to remain unmarried forever? How old are you? 16. You talk like a grown up. The boy smiled, and his smile was painful. How much do a box and a footrest cost? Ready-made ones, 6 rupees. 8 rupees if you order. I had like to have mine made. You can't save that much. The boy did not say anything, only crinkled his smooth face into a pale shadow of smile. The man looked away. By now, the people were moving in the thick stream towards the stairs, but none paid any attention to the boy and the man. After some time, the man said, "Stop charging half. Why do you charge half?" "Because I want two more customers," the boy said quietly. "That's all. That's also why I go from house to house. If I sat on the footpath uh, like the other shoe shine boys, I'd earn particularly nothing." Adding, adding a moment later, "Your shoes are finished." The man removed his foot from the boy's knee. Satisfied? Absolutely. As the man put his hand into his pocket, evidently to bring out the money, the boy hesitantly said, "Would you ever mind if I say something?" "Go ahead." "Could you?" The boy said, eyes fixed on the ground. "Lend me 8 rupees. I will return them as soon as I can. I'm ashamed of asking, but you see, he choked and could not go on. A smile broke on the man's face. Don't worry about paying me. No, no, then I won't take the money. Just pay me for the shoe shine, 25 paisa. Full charge since you want to pay it. The man took out his purse and drew out a 10 rupee note. Here, take this. Then, half seriously, he added, pay me whenever you like. After a year or 5 years, returning 8 rupees will be hard enough. Don't make things harder for me. And if say I haven't any change, then I won't take anything. All right, the man said, and as he pushed the 10 rupees note into the purse and pulled out a few 1 rupees once, he counted 8 and held them out to the boy. Thank you very much, Sahib. The boy said, taking the money. You have done me at a great favor. The man did not remember to have seen a warmer smile and the one the boy gave him now. He could not help the smile that came to his lips. Tell me your name, Sahib. The old man told him, then asked him his. The boy obliged him. And is this where you live? He pointed towards the door. The man nodded and began to walk away. Sahib, the boy called after him. You have forgotten to pay me for for the shoe shine. Oh, the man said, a broad smile across his face and stopped. Then, after paying the boy with a pleased as punch smile across his face, he disappeared down the stairs. As the boy stood holding the notes, he was sure that a day which had started too well would certainly bring him more than the 64 rupees he had earned on the previous day, which was the biggest amount he had ever earned on any day in any of the cities he had been so far. Thank you.
Thank you so much to both of you. Now I would like to invite Riya and Pallavi for further reading.
A very good afternoon to all of you. Today, on the very special day, book reading day named Introduction to the Other World, me and Pallavi is going to read a short story by Catherine Mansfield. The name of the short story is The Doll's House, and the story begins when dear old Mrs. Hay went back to town after staying with Miss Vernon's. She sent the children a doll's house. It was so big that the carter and Pat carried it into a courtyard, and there it stayed, propped up on two wooden boxes besides the bedroom door. No harm could come to it. It was summer, and perhaps the smell of paint would have gone off by time it had to be taken in. For really, the smell of paint coming from that doll's house in the back bracket, sweet old of Miss Hay. Of course, most sweet and generous, but the smell of paint was quite enough to make everyone seriously ill, in Aunt Baden's opinion. Even before the sacking was taken off, and when it was, there stood the doll's house, darker, oily, spinach green picked out from bright yellow. Its two solid little chimneys glued on the roof were painted red and white, and the door, gleaming with yellow varnishing, was like a little slab of toffee. Four windows, real windows, were divided into panes by a broad streak of green. There was actually a tiny porch too, painted yellow with a big lumps of congealed paint hanging along the edge, but perfect little house. Who called possibly mind the smell? It was part of the joy, part of newness. Open it quickly, someone. The hook, the side was stuck fast. Pat raised it open with the pancake, and the whole house front swung uh, back, and there you were gazing at one and the same moment into the drawing room and dining room, the kitchen and two bedrooms. That is the way for a house to open. Why don't all houses open like that? How much more exciting than peering through the slit of the door into a mean little hall with a headstand and two umbrellas? What is? Isn't it what you long to know about a house when you put your hand on the knocker? Perhaps it is the way God opens houses at the dead of night when He is taking a quiet turn with an angel. Oh, oh, the Burnell's children sounded as they were in despair. It was too marvelous. It was too much for them. They had never seen anything like it in their life. All the rooms were prepared. There were pictures on the walls, painted on the paper with gold frames, complete red carpet covered all the floors except the kitchen, red plush chairs, and in the drawing room, clothes and cradles, a straw dresser with tiny plants, and a big jug. But what Kezia liked more than anything, the middle of the anything, what she liked faithfully was the lamp. It stood in the middle of the dining room table. The exquisite little amber lamp with the white globe. It was even filled already lamp with already for lighting. Through, of course, you couldn't light it, but there was something inside that looked like oil and moved. Then you shook it. The father and the mother, dolls who uh, screamed very very stiff as through they had fainted in the drawing room, and their two little children asleep upstairs were really too big for the doll's house. They didn't look as though they belonged, but the lamp was perfect. It seemed to smile at Kezia, to say, I live here." The lamp was real. The Burnell children could hardly walk to school. Fast through the next morning, they burned to tell everybody, to describe too well to boost what their dolls' houses before the school bell rang. "I am to tell," said Isabel, "because I am the eldest, and you two can join in after. But I am to tell first." There was nothing to answer. Isabel was boozy, but she was always right. The Lottie and the Kezia knew too well the powers that went with being eldest. They brushed through the thick uh, buttercups at the road edge and said nothing. "And I am to choose who's to come and see the first see it first." Mother said I might. For it had been arranged that while the doll's house stood in courtyard, they might ask the girls to school, two at a time, to come and look, not to stay to tea, of course, or to come traipsing through the house, but just to stand quickly and the courtyard while Isabel pointed out the beauties, and Lottie and Chiara looked pleased. But hurry as they might, by the time they reached the uh, Tad Paling's the boys' playground, the bell had begun to jangle. They only just had time to wipe off their hats and fall into line before the roll was called. Never mind. Isabel tried to make up for it by looking very important and mysterious, and by whispering behind her hand to the girls near her. Got something to tell you at playtime. Playtime come, and Isabel was surrounded. The girls of her class nearly fought to put their arms around her, to walk away with her, to beam flutteringly to be her special friend. She held quite a court under the huge pine trees at the side of the playground, uh, nudging and giggling together. The little girl pressed up close, and the only two who stayed outside the ring were two who were always outside, the little Calvies. They knew better than to come anywhere near the Bondway, for the fact was the school was Bonnell children went to, was not too kind to place their parents would have chosen if there had been any choice, but there was none. It was the only school for miles, and the consequences was all the children and the neighborhood is the judge's little girl and doctor's daughter and shopkeepers' children and milkmen's were forced to mix together, not to speak their being an equal number together of rude, rough little boy as well. But the line had to be drawn somewhere. It was drawn at the Calvins. Many of the children, including the Burnells, were not allowed even to speak up to them. They walked past the Calvins with their hands and the air, and as they sat, the fashion and all manners and behavior. The Calvins were stemmed by everyone. Even the teacher had a special voice for them, a special smile for the other children. And when then the little Calvi come to her desk with the bunch of the very common looking flowers, she disappointed. There were daughters of spray hardworking little washermen who went about from house to house by the day. This was awful enough. But where was Mr. Kelby? Nobody knew the certain, but everybody said he was a prison. So they were the daughters of washerwoman, and the Goldbird. Very nice company for other people's children, and they looked it. Why Mrs. Calvey made them so conspicuous was hard to understand. The truth was they were dressed in bits given to her by the people for whom she worked. Lil, for instance, who was stout, plain child with big freckles, come to school in a dress made from a green artage tablecloth of bornils with red plush sleeves from the logins curtain. Her head perched on top of her high forehead was a grown-up woman head, once the property of Miss Lexi, the postmistress. It was turned up at the back of a tree with a large squirrel. What a little guy she looked. She was impossible not to laugh, and her little sister, our else, wore a long white dress, rather like a nightgown, and a pair of little boy's boots. But whatever our eyes were, she would have looked strange. She was a tiny uh, wishbone of a child with cropped hair and enormous Solomon's eyes, a little white old. Nobody had ever seen her smile. She scarcely ever spoke. She went through life holding on where little moment our elves followed, and the playground on the round road going to and from school, where was little marching in front and our elves holding on behind. Only when she wanted anything, or when she was out of breath, our elves gave little a hug, a twitch, and Lil stopped and turned around. The Calvis never failed to understand each other. Now I request Pallavi to continue.
Thank you, Riya. I am Pallavi Parmar, and now I'm going to continue the story, The Dollhouse, written by Catherine Mansfield. Now, they hovered at the edge. You couldn't stop them listening. When the little girls turned round and sneered, Lil, as usual, gave her silly, shamefaced smile, but our elves only looked. And Isabel's voice, so very proud, went on telling. The carpet made a great sensation, but so did the beds with a real bedclothes, and the stove with an oven door. When she finished, Kezia broke in. You have forgotten the lamp, Isabel. Oh, yes, said Isabel. And there's a tiny little lamp, all made of yellow glass, with a white globe that stands on the dining room table. You couldn't tell it from a real one. The lamp's best of all, cried Kezia. She thought Isabel wasn't making half enough of the little lamp, but nobody paid any attention. Isabel was choosing the two who were to come back with them that afternoon and see it. She chose Emmy Cole and Lena Logan. But when the other knew they were all to have a chance, they couldn't be nice enough to Isabel. One by one, they put their arms round Isabel's waist and walked her off. They had something to whisper to her, a secret. Isabel's my friend. Only the little Kelvys moved away forgotten. There was nothing more for them to hear. Days passed, and as more children saw the doll's house, the fame of it spread. It became the one subject, the range. The one question was, have you seen the Berners doll's house? Oh, ain't it lovely? Haven't you seen it? Oh, I say. Even the dinner hour was given up to talking about it. The little girls sat under the pines eating their thick mutton sandwiches and big slabs of johnny cake spread with butter, while always as near as they could get sat the Calvays, our elves holding on to Lil, listening to, while they chewed their jam sandwiches out of a newspaper soaked with the large red blobs. Mother, said Kezia, can't I ask the Kelways just once? Certainly not, Kezia. But why not? Run away, Kezia. You know quite well why not. At last, everybody had seen it except them. On that day, the subject rather flat. It was the dinner hour. The children stood together under the pine trees, and suddenly, as they looked at the Kelways eating out of their paper, always by themselves, always listening, they wanted to be horrid to them. Emmy Cole started the whisper. Lil Kelway's going to be a servant when she grown up. Oh, oh, how awful, said Isabel Burnell, and she made eyes at Emmy. Emmy swallowed in a very meaning way and nodded to Isabel as she would seen her mother to do on the occasions. It's true, it's true, it's true, she said. Then Lena Logan's little eye snapped. Shall I ask her? She whispered. Bet you don't, said Jessie May. Oh, I'm not frightened, said Lena. Suddenly she gave a little squeal and danced in front of the other girls. Watch me now, said Lena, and sliding, gliding, dragging one foot, giggling behind her hand, Lena went over to the Kelways. Lynn looked up from her dinner. She wrapped the rest quickly away. Our elves stopped chewing. What was coming now? Is it true? You are going to be a servant when you grow up? Lil Kelways shrilled Lena. There was dead silence. But instead of answering, Lil only gave her silly, shamefaced smile. She didn't seem to mind the question at all. What a sell for Lena! The girls began to titter. Lena couldn't stand that. She put her hands on her hips. She shot forward. Yeah, her father's in prison, she hissed spitefully. This was such a marvelous thing to have said that the little girls rushed away in a body, deeply, deeply excited, wild with joy. Someone found a long rope and they began skipping. And never did they skip so high, run in out so fast, or do such a daring thing as one that morning. In the afternoon, Pat called for the Burnell's children with the buggy and they drove home. They were visitors. Isabel and Lottie, who liked visitors, went upstairs to change their pinafores. But Keisa thanked out of the back. So, nobody was about. She began to swing on the big white gates of the courtyard. Presently, looking along the road, she saw two little dogs. They grew bigger. They were coming towards her. Now she could see that they were the Calvays. Keisha stopped swinging. She slipped off the gate as if she was going to run away. Then she hesitated. The Calvays came nearer, and beside them walked their shadows, very long, stretched right across the road, with their heads in the buttercups. Keisa clambered back on the gate. She had made up her mind. She swung out. Hello, she said to the passing Calvays. They were so astounded that they stopped. Lil gave her silly smile. Our elves just stared. You can come and see our doll's house if you want to, said Keisa, and she dragged one toe on the ground. But at that, Lil turned red and shook her head quickly. Why not? Asked Keisa. Lil gasped. Then she said, your ma told our ma you wasn't to speak to us. Oh, well, said Kezia. She didn't know what to reply. It doesn't matter. You can come and see our doll's house all the same. Come on, nobody is looking. But Lil shook her head still harder. Don't you want to? Said Keisa. Suddenly there was a twitch, a tug at Lil's skirt. She turned around. Our Alice was looking at her with her big, imploring eyes. She was frowning. She wanted to go. For a moment, Lil looked at our Alice very doubtfully, but then our Alice twitched her skirt again. She, she started forward. Keiza led the way. Like two little stray cats, they followed across the courtyard to where the doll's house stood. There it is, said Kezia. There was a pause. Lil breathed loudly, almost snorted. Our eggs was still as a stone. I will open it for you, said Kezia kindly. She undid the hook and they looked inside. There's the drawing room and the dining room. And that's the Kezia. Oh, what the start they gave. Kezia. It was Aunt Bear's voice. They turned round. At the back doors stood Aunt Bear, and staring as if she couldn't believe what she saw. How dare you ask the little calves into the courtyard, said her cold, furious voice. You know as well I do. You are not allowed to talk to them. Run away, children, run away at once. And don't come back again, said Aunt Bear. And she stopped into the yard and shoot them out of as if they were chickens. Off you go immediately, she called, cold and proud. They did not need telling twice. Burning with shame, shrieking together, Lil huddling alone like her mother, our else dead. Somehow they crossing the big courtyard and squeezed through the white gate. Wait, disobedient girl, said Auntie Ball bitterly to Kezia, and she slammed the doll's house too. The afternoon had been awful. A letter had come from a Willie Brunt, a terrifying, threatening letter saying if she did not meet him that evening in Pullman's Bush, he had come to the front door and asked the reason why. But now that she had frightened those little rats of Kelways and given Kezia a good scolding, her heart felt lighter. That ghastly pressure was gone. She went back to the house humming. When the Kelways were well out of sight of Burners, they sat down to rest on a big red drain pipe by the side of the road. Lil's cheeks were still burning. She took off the hat with a quill and held it on her knee. Dreamily, dreamily, they looked over the hay paddocks, past the creek to the brook of Wattles, where Logan's cow stood waiting to be milked. What were their thoughts? Presently, our Alice nudged up close to her sister, but now she had forgotten the cross lady. She put out a finger and stroked her sister's quill. She smiled her with her red smile. I seen the little lamb, she said softly. Then both were silent once more. So that's the story, and the moral of the story is whether there is a child of rich people or a child of poor people, they both have feelings, they both have equal rights to get happiness. So, as a part of society, we should behave to keep in mind that. Yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Pallavi and Riya. Now, here the first part of this event is completed, and let's take a break of 15 to 20 minutes after the song of Dhatri. So, come here.
વન્સ અગેન ગુડ આફ્ટરનૂન એવરીવન. હું જે ગીત ગાવા જઉં છું એ હરીન્દ્ર દવેનું છે, વાંસળીથી વિખૂટો. વાંસળીથી કૃષ્ણનો સૂર, જે વાંસળીનો સૂર છે એ વિખૂટો પડ્યો છે અને એ પૂછે છે, યમુનાને પૂછે છે, રાધાને પૂછે છે, બધાને પૂછે છે કે તમે ક્યાંય કૃષ્ણને જોયો છે? અને એનો જે એની જે વેદના, એની જે પીડા છે એ આ ગીતમાં છે, વણેલી છે. વાસળીથી વિખૂટો થઈને અસુર એક, વાસળીથી વિખૂટો થઈને અસુર એક, ઢૂંઢે કદંબની છાય, ઓ ઢૂંઢે કદંબની છાય, કે માર્ગની ધૂળને ઢંઢોળી પૂછે મારા, માર્ગની ધૂળને ઢંઢોળી પૂછે મારા માધવને દીઠો છે ક્યાં, કે સુર એક ઢૂંઢે કદંબની છા, કે સુર એક ઢૂંઢે કદંબની છાય, વાસળીથી વિખૂટું. યમુના વેણ તમે મૂંગા છો કેમ રાધાની આંખ આ ઉદાસ, યમુના વેણ તમે મૂંગા છો કેમ રાધાની આંખ આ ઉદાસ, વહી જતી લેખીને વ્યાકુળ કરે છે, વહી જતી લેખીને વ્યાકુળ કરે છે, સરતિયા સાંજનો ઉજાસ, સરતિયા સાંજનો ઉજાસ, કે બાવરી વિભાવરીના પગલાની લાગણીથી, બાવરી વિભાવરીના પગલાની લાગણીથી રાત રાણી ઝાકળથી નાય, કે સુર એક ઢૂંઢે કદંબની છાય, કે સુર એક ઢૂંઢે કદંબની છાય, વાસળીથી વિખૂટું. ઉડતું આવે જો મોર પીછ તો અમે રાખશું સુવાળા રંગ, ઉડતું આવે જો મોર પીછ તો અમે રાખશું સુવાળા રંગ, મારી તે મોરલીના આભમાં ઉગે છે એક, મારી તે મોરલીના આભમાં ઉગે છે એક, શ્યામના તે નામનો મયંક, હો શ્યામના તે નામનો મયંક, કે જળમાં તેજ એનું એવું રેલાય હવે, જળમાં તેજ એનું એવું રેલાય હવે, પાતાળે હરી પરખાય, કે સુર એક ઢૂંઢે કદંબની છાય, કે સુર એક ઢૂંઢે કદંબની છાય, વાસળીથી વિખૂટું, વાસળીથી વિખૂટો થઈને અસુર એક, ઢૂંઢે કદંબની છાય, કે માર્ગની ધૂળને ઢંઢોળી પૂછે, કે માર્ગની ધૂળને ઢંઢોળી પૂછે મારા માધવને દીઠો છે ક્યાં, કે સુર એક ઢૂંઢે કદંબની છાય, કે સુર એક ઢૂંઢે કદંબની છાય. થેન્ક યુ.